Agam. I'm recently moved to the Bay Area like a month ago. Previously, I was in New York. I pursue my master's in management of technology from New York University. Before that, I was in India. I was working with a trading company which deals with iron and steel raw materials over there back in India. I was working with their operations department to transform the offline process into a digital medium where they get more customer interactions and they can manage their marketing campaigns properly. Currently, I'm working with Antilla.ai, which is also a high growth startup working towards WhatsApp e-commerce platform where small merchants and small business owners have their customer interactions through WhatsApp. And they can also send marketing promotions. And also, if there are any customer support requirements from customers, they can manage it through WhatsApp, which is like widely used all over the world. So that's what we are working on right now as a product. We are also incorporating an AI chatbot, which usually answers all the frequently asked questions or queries. So that's pretty much about me. And moving forward, I'm currently open for new product roles, and I'm also studying about the fintech industry and getting my exposure towards it.
Very cool. Very cool. So I guess a question for you before we start, like where do you see fintech going with all these interviews you've been doing? Like what do
Oh,
you
I see a lot of innovative things happening, and there are a lot of small startups which has really high potential, and all of them are coming up with an innovative product. Like one of the fintech payment processing system which I came across was checkbook.io, if you know about it. So they basically provide an service where the payment receiver gets a check on their email or a phone number. They don't need to provide their bank details. The payments can be recurring from the sender side, and it's pretty great to see that people are up for and businesses are up for taking new ways of dealing with their daily transactions, as well as the incorporation of AI has also been phenomenal for the industry, as all the tools which are, very much complicated are made easy and possible to use for people with a really less workforce. So I see this industry is going way too fast, as well as FedNow, the introduction of FedNow is also going to revolutionize the transactions and the payments system.
So FedNow is like the government's version of, I guess, what ACHing is like an old legacy model, right?
Yeah.
Wiring is fairly newer. I guess FedNow is like the latest modern tech to literally get money from point A to point B within like a second instead of waiting at all. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And also FedNow is also beneficial since it's 24/7. There is no time limit, as well as it's cheaper than wire transfer. So wire transfer is also 24/7 and instant payments, but it comes with a cost. But FedNow is much more cheaper. I feel it has great potential. I've seen similar payment process in India, back in India. We have UPI, which is like each account has their unique identification. The payment goes through those two UPI IDs. So that's pretty great, and it is much more secure as well.
Was it a startup that created UPI, or was it the government?
It's a government department which was newly set up to adapt this and market it. It has got a phenomenal adaptation, not only in businesses but as well as personal and people using it for their daily transaction from P2P.
Got it. And would you say FedNow is like the United States' version of this, or is it still different? Because I guess can you give a UPI number? That's what it is. It's a UPI number, correct?
Yeah, it can be done through your email, it can be done through your mobile phone number or your UPI ID. So
Does
that's a
that
unique UPI ID. Sorry.
does that create fraud because it's so easy, like to transfer money? Is there way more fraud or
So it's a totally secured platform and it goes from banks to banks. So the payer's bank and the receiver's bank both have their infrastructure up for the security of the process, as well as there are governing bodies as well as monitoring the transactions which are happening. If there are any recurring or if there are any flagged transactions, they personally address that. So that's like, if there are more ways of paying and transactions happening, there are chances to have more frauds, but it is also regulated and monitored at the same time.
Would you say that the tech in India is more modern right now for payments?
For the fintech space, I would say so. India is a large population, and there's a lot of potential. So whatever things they throw in public, it is gonna get a good amount of adaptation. So I would say fintech, and particularly fintech, India is moving really fast. That's what I'll say.
Why is that? I'm just curious, like why?
Okay, so there are multiple factors because of that. So first of all, there is a company named Jio, JIO. So they have offered mobile data and then the internet to each and every person from remote place to all the cities in a really cheap cost, which is very less than $1 a month, which brought people on the internet. And in last 4 years, the government announced demonetization, where they cancel out old 500 and 1,000 rupee notes, which made people to use more digital based transactions for their daily transactions. So that has, really boosted up the infrastructure of payments in India, as well as people are also curious about, okay, this is a new technology, let's try. They have been using it. Even small businesses, which is like more than 70% of India, they all operate in small businesses. Even those people and those folks are adapting the technology really fast, since they are getting an additional payment method without incorporating any infrastructure for that. So the UPI, which is like you don't need any bank account for that, you can directly receive your payments in your existing bank account. So it's a great way to, have more methods to pay to offer to the customers.
Got it. Do companies get UPI numbers or just people?
Oh yeah, even companies can ask for UPI numbers, and there are many startups coming up in India as well, which use this kind of data about their UPI transaction data to lend money to small businesses, to create their credit score. So small businesses, they don't usually get loans through big banks, but there are companies who are offering loans on the basis of these transactions.
Very cool. That's awesome. It sounds like there's a lot happening in India. So now that you're in the US, I guess it's a very different experience. Like everybody's using credit cards, right? Like there is Apple Pay, there's Google Pay, there's Venmo, there's some modern tech type experiences, but it sounds like UPI is like way better. It's like a better experience.
Yeah, it's one thing for all. Like, you don't need to have multiple apps or payment options. Like, Venmo, you have to add your money in your wallet and then you have to pay. There are companies doing that in India as well, but UPI is like bank to bank, peer to peer.
Got it. I guess the government is tracking all of this too, correct? So they know all the money movement. So that's
Yeah,
incentive.
yeah, that's true. And as well, there is a big problem of, people, if they record a cash payment, they usually try to skip or just go over their taxes. Like, they don't report their cash payments. This has been a win-win situation for government as well as the business people.
Because the business people get their money faster and the government gets to track what's being moved. And then it's like a win-win because they can tax appropriately
Yeah.
for that. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah. I guess on the US side, like questions for me on the company, like why did you reach out? Like what made you reach out to us?
So I just went through the product itself, like justpay.io. I went to the website. It says that, AI powered solution for cash management and their account receivable and payable. I see. So back in New York, I worked with the city office and in their administration department, where I was closely documenting their office processes on their vendor payments and vendor invoices. How do they deal with it? There were two different departments handling those process, which was like, one is the accounts payable department and the other one is the facilities department, who have placed the order from the vendor. So I saw that, there is a bit of miscommunication between, or less communication between both of the departments. And since it's a a government body, it had a lot of documentations and checkoffs before the payment is released. So over there, I was curious about, okay, what are options do we have to, make this process more streamlined and make it more faster. So this created a curiosity in my mind, as well as this particular like when I came across justpayio, I saw that, okay, this is a really cool solution to that. That's the reason I got, really interested on understanding about how things go in JustPay.
Yeah, no, I think talking about UPI numbers and money movement is one thing, but also having the confidence you're sending the correct amount is another. So, like, there's two different, I guess, topics. Like, one is money movement, which is like just moving it from point A to point B, which essentially the governments have the responsibility at the end of the day to like make sure that they can help facilitate that, whether it be printing cash, physical paper, or coins, or like having digital currency like move from point A to point B. That's really on them to figure that out. But I think that there's way more complexity in the what is the money being moved for. And that's where Just Paid kind of comes in, where we are looking at trying to understand when money is moving from point A to point B, why. And, that in itself is a really good place to be when a business becomes more complex. Like if it's like a whatever, a teenager going to high school, all they really care about is their lunch money and their, right? Like they don't have too many things to think about in terms of bills. And then like as you progress through life, you get more and more bills, but I think a lot of that is manageable as like a single person. When you get married, things become a little more complex and there's more bills and invoices. But I think once you step out of that and into the corporate realm, there's LLCs, like smaller companies that may be able to manage their bills. But at the end of the day, it's either the owner of the business or like their accounting team or finance team, like looking at that. And, the question is, how do you scale a business over time and like allow the business to focus on the business and not just have these, I'd call them like proper fiduciary restrictions on the business, but having the confidence to know that you can scale your business without as many people might be really good. I think an LLC, like a pizzeria, how complex is that business? It might be slightly complex. Like you're buying pizza boxes, you're buying dough, you're buying cheese, you're buying other stuff. There's electricity. There's also payments going out to payments going out to vendors and whatnot. So there's a lot of back and forth. But scaling a business to like what a Domino's pizzeria is like, or even more complex like a AT&T, like think of the complexity long term for businesses like that. Like let's think about like these communication companies like AT&T. They have thousands and thousands of vendors running like conduit and piping and electrical and all of this stuff, buying supplies, running things, getting invoices, also trying to get paid as well. So there's money coming in, money going out. When you have 50,000 invoices going out, right? Or you have accounts payable, like maybe you have 20,000 people you have to pay. It gets to a point where it is very, very like a manual, arduous process where you have a lot of people doing a lot of manual work to make sure you can close the books on time. And by close the books on time, I mean like, okay, it's the end of the month. How much money do we have? Like after we paid everyone and we received all of our payments, it's closing the books essentially at a high level. So what Just Paid is trying to accomplish is taking a lot of the newer technology that's been like, I would say kind of changing the world like very rapidly and applying a lot of that methodology to what is happening inside of like the fintech realm. I mean, love it or hate it, there's companies like Midjourney. You literally go into a Discord group, you type in what you envision your photograph to be. Like I want someone walking and I want there to be a dystopian future and I want them to look like they are part of like Star Wars or whatnot. And literally it will generate many images for you to pick from. And
Yeah.
suddenly you have artists that are still artists creating at a way more creative level than they ever have before. Maybe they're good at drawing hands, but they're not good at drawing backgrounds. Maybe the artist takes, 3 months to create an art piece. Now it's literally seconds. And the artist suddenly has a tool in their tool set that allows them to go at light speed, unlike ever before. And Midjourney is like an example of where the world is going at a really rapid pace. And I think fintech will get there also. And it's a very debatable it's a hot topic. Like, people get stressed that, oh my God, my job is going away. I think people will always be in the process. Like, I don't think artists will ever go away. I think they're going to enhance what they're doing with their creative process with what is going on with like a Midjourney. Like, if you look at music and, the original like electric keyboard came out, right? Like, was that going to like steal like what musicians were doing? I think musicians immediately adopted and created like new music like techno. Things that
Yeah.
were never like heard before were created. And when the software to create movies like CGI and all of these beautiful effects from these like high-end like computers came around, the movie industry didn't go away. It learned how to like really leverage that technology. Yes, like you take a company like Disney and they had all of these like artists and they were all like drawing and creating these beautiful like movies like Cinderella. Now they're
Yeah.
creating like different types of movies, but the artists have learned and adopted to the newer tech to create newer types of interesting movies. And, take that thinking into the finance world, because these jobs are not going to go away. They're going to become different. And people are going to like try and understand and adopt over time to use the technology to make their jobs easier. Right.
Yeah, I believe so, AI, using AI tools and enhancing your own abilities and skill set and making your work more appealing as well as much more faster. That's what AI is gonna do. AI is not gonna replace your job. It's gonna just increase your productivity as well as your creativity.
Right. So take an accounting firm, right? The accounting firm has, say, 100 employees, right? And they're scaling and they're scaling. By scaling, I mean they're getting more customers and they have like the arduous process of, getting on the phone with their business and saying, okay, what are these purchases? I want to put this into QuickBooks or Sage or whatever they're using. The accounting firm has a lot of work doing that. If AI could take pieces of like the painful part. And what is the painful part? Like, okay, why did the company buy pizza on the 24th of August? Is that a company retreat? It's clearly food. Was it a marketing event? It's clearly not the state that the company is in. I'm going to assume that it's a marketing event in another state that they had. But then they have to like validate that with like someone on the phone so they could bucket it appropriately inside of QuickBooks, right? AI can help maybe send a text to the person who like made that like payment, and then the person could just tell the AI, yes, it was for a marketing event at a conference that we were at, and we were buying things like booth equipment and hardware, and we needed posters at the FedEx office, and suddenly it's like AI could maybe be way more proactive and allow the accountant to do more of the like other parts of the work. There may be parts of work that really restrict allowing accountants to scale themselves. This may actually help them in those ways. But it applies to everyone, right? Like, any founder of a business has to sit down with their like accountant at some point
Yeah.
and start to bucket things every year or every like 4 months or every month. Like, it's, if you are successful at your business, like having an accountant is part of life. And the accountant also like wants to scale themselves and have more clients and like make more money. Like, it will allow for us to like do more as human beings. And I mean, this is just the way I think about it. I think when people say that jobs are going to go away, I don't think that is necessarily true. Jobs just change. Like, when the computer came around, like people adopted and used it as a tool. Like I think AI is way more of a tool than anything that's going to like help us. But it's hard to tell how fast things are going to change. But it's apparent to me that it's a tool. When I was building I had, I've been a serial entrepreneur in the past businesses that I've had. I wish I had a tool like this. And that's honestly part of the reason why I started working on this problem with my co-founders. And they have their own reasons for like working on this business. But, at the end of the day, imagine like you can start your LLC and imagine you have a virtual assistant who will actually help like manage the accounting. It's not going to be an accountant, but it's going to help you in certain ways to like bucket things like, okay, you bought 45 items here and you bought 47 items there. These are bucketed towards this. This is bucketed towards that. And become more proactive and say things like 40 of your customers haven't paid you this month. Would you like me to help collect that money? Imagine if AI said that to a founder. And then
Yeah.
you say yes, and it sends an email, and then you say yes again, and it sends a text out to that person who owes you. I think things are going to get really, really interesting in this space. And I think, with FedNow, it's just more helpful to have those like rails, those payment rails for all of us so people can get like paid. Why is it like what I mean by that is like, getting an employee paid takes forever, right? Like why do you have to wait every 2 weeks? In the future, you might get paid daily, right? Like literally hourly, it might just go into your account. How crazy would that be if it was real time? Like the changing of the stock market. Like
Yeah.
I worked this month and it's just like literally like going up because the AI is tracking your hours or whatever. The AI is helping like make sure things are appropriate and correct and like people are getting paid as they're working per day. That would be a very different world, right? Than like waiting every 2 weeks to get paid. A lot of what was built out was based off of like the history of like the United States and the way that we just did things. Cause like it takes, first of all, it takes time because of the rails, right? Like we used to use paper cash so that the employer would have to like go get that cash, right? And
And
then
then
like
hand it over.
distribute it to all the employees. And then it like became digital and, getting paid got a little less frictionful. But, right now, accounting teams are tracking people's hours, they're making sure things are appropriate. It would be, in the future, it's going to be very interesting to see that, like, people call it like the gig economy in the future where people are getting paid in like just per gig on LinkedIn, right? Like imagine a
Yeah.
world where like you're literally working at your job and like you're getting paid differently. But for me, I think we're tackling like how do we pull in as many really rich data sources, whether that be payroll, whether that be, you know, inventory data, or whether that be accounts receivable, accounts payable, and understanding like what needs to get paid when and, what you need to pay and when. And, the idea is to layer all of this together in a really good package that allows a company to leverage the newer technology out there.
Yeah, that's fine. That's really great. And see, I totally see now where the AI part of justpay.io comes in. So that's pretty good. And that actually answered my three of my questions. One first one was like why justpay.io and what motivated you to do so. That's what you covered. Second thing is the second question was about the AI powered, like where does the AI come in the accounts receivable and accounts payable? That's what I got a clear analogy about that as well.
I
Yeah,
could talk
sure.
about like my co-founders. They had different reasons for starting the company than mine. One of my
Mhm.
co-founders what ran an accounting firm, and it was very arduous because it is very, very manual. And they would literally have to Slack people asking, what's this for? What's that for? What's this for? What's that for? All day long. And then they
I've been yeah, I have been in the other side of the story. So back in India, along with my undergrad, I was also working with my dad on a business. So he has been running a business since 25 years. I remember, he dealing with his chartered accountant. he constantly calling him before closing the books, like, okay, we have this all transactions. Give me explanation about this. Where should I list this? In which bucket it should go? I've been there and I've seen it very closely.
How long did you do that for, and how many hours did it take?
So usually the financial cycle in India, it used to run from April to March. So during the March, when the all the reports are being filed to the government, before that, almost from February and March, 2 months, the accountants constantly in touch with the business owners. They always stay in touch with them and they analyze each and every transaction and they report it accordingly.
So that the pain, right? That's a piece of it. So you
Yeah,
experience it. So you understand, like, I mean, if you want to scale a business also like to the size of like a Tesla,
yeah,
imagine how complex that business has become. Like how
yeah.
many people do they hire to like track, they're buying tires for the Teslas, they're buying like the glass. They have R&D.
So many parts.
It's very complex, and they're buying like the buildings, and they're renting buildings, and they're putting all of this stuff in there. I think it gets really like complex, where it's you're just hiring huge amounts of people to track all of this stuff. Not that that's wrong. It just, why not leverage the newer stuff like what Midjourney is doing? It really is inspiring, and that's where we want to like apply that stuff. But my co-founder was basically doing what you were doing with your dad, like that part of it on the accounting side. And my other co-founder, Vinay, he's seen the way that people run their businesses, and they're not so fiduciarily responsible sometimes. And a lot of companies overhired, right, in the valley. And they didn't think about the ramifications of overhiring. These are human beings. Like this is their livelihood, right? Like whatever. I'm not going to name names, but a lot of companies all over the United States, at least, like overhired like crazy.
Yeah, during
Fiduciary.
COVID and pandemic time during lockdown, they were boosting up the hiring, and now during this time of the year, like I see that so many companies are laying off employees.
Right. And fiduciarily, if AI was just giving you a heads up, hey, you're overhiring by 500%, it would be helpful, right? It would, like, maybe the incentive of the team is one, like, meaning like their whatever their incentives, whatever, money was cheap back then and they wanted to do a lot of investment in R&D. But having AI warn you if things change, hey, here's if the interest rate changes and like loans are more expensive, this is what might happen. It could model out predictive ways to warn you that human beings may not be thinking about because they're so busy like in the day-to-day business.
Yeah, yeah. So I have a question regarding that. So like to have an AI just prompting you or just notifying you about any warnings or any mishappening, do you have to train your AI in your own set of things like how you want things to go? Or is it a generalized thing which, AI is taking sources or data from a generalized company? Let's say there's a startup in fintech, so AI is learning from previous fintech startups that, okay, this company did this thing properly. That is the reason they were able to scale. I'll give the same model to the new coming startup and I'll prompt the startup regarding that as well. Or is it the startup can set up the control factors?
I don't think I fully understand the question. So you're saying, like, do we like, I mean, for us, the more data we have, the more insightful we're going to get.
But is it about only the particular company where you're applying the AI or as an industry whole?
Depends. I think we're going to take two strategies, and this is like long term for us. One is if a company would like the shared insightful data, we're going to allow that. And then if a company is hesitant to share, like in an anonymized way, their data, then we're going to shield the data, which may give lots of insights about that particular company, but it may not give you like comparison insights, meaning like, hey, we bought whatever it is. We buy 700 laptops per month from, iPads per month. Let's just say iPads per month, from Apple. We may want to give insights if people are willing to share their data to the other companies, saying like, hey, the average iPad costs this much per company. You're paying $200 more. We're making the assumption these are iPads that are higher end and blah, 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 blah. And we can see that here. So the answer is you're buying more expensive iPads, yet you're still getting a deal in comparison to like everyone else who's out there. Like long term, that would be a really insightful way to do it. But people could say, say that there's companies that feel like there's a competitiveness in their industry and they don't want to share that data, that's totally fine. And they just hit, we're going to opt out of that,
Gotcha.
anonymous data sharing. So,
So
you know,
that happens during the onboarding side of things.
right now it's per like backend configuration in our software. So depends on the customer and what they're asking for. So right now it's, we are giving demos to all of our customers. We have a sales team talking to them. So it's basically just it's a process as we like close the sale. So,
Sure, yeah.
but long term, I think that people are really going to have those different options out there, like using Gmail versus like hosting your own email, right? Like, Gmail is anonymizing data and they're using that data to show you appropriate ads. They see people like you and they're going to show them those appropriate ads also. So they're kind of learning from their, people using Gmail. So that's, you're opting into the Gmail experience, which is free email. Okay. And then you're basically saying, I am okay with you like
Sharing my data.
providing the right ads to me for, you looking at the data. Or if people opt into like self-hosting, and there's a lot of self-hosting email providers, like some companies really want that. So they opt into that and like go for that. So it depends on the customer really.
Yeah, I see that where this like where this conversation is going towards. Like, yeah, I totally agree to whatever you said. And like I feel that, having a personalized assistant which is constantly warning you about it, it is going to be really helpful for businesses which are not heavy uh on their let's say manpower. Like, they don't want to have too many people or consultants coming in their businesses and seeing their reports. Why don't we have use leverage technology to, make such decision, or someone who's gonna just monitor? That's great. That's really great.
Right. Like the end goal is to make something that's useful and not painful for someone to use. So this is probably the harder part of any task, is making something like companies want and that's useful and kind of is pleasant to use, as opposed to having, huge setup, the restrictions of like just some of the more complex systems out there. It's not easy to set up a lot of these systems, right? Like to put them in place.
Yeah.
How do you
Yeah.
make something that's just delight to use out of the box, right? And that's the challenge. In AI, I call it insightful dashboards, like real-time insight dashboards. Like, say in India, your personal bank account should look like this. When you get on the plane to come to the United States, your dashboard looks like this. When you're in a different area, your dashboard looks like this. The AI starts to change the way it behaves also depending on where you're located. And that means like even more extreme, like in different parts of the day, you're going to work on different tasks. If AI becomes more aware of that, it's going to say, okay, in the morning you are up and you don't want much like given to you. So we're going to give you probably the most pertinent data to your business and like be insightful, and then stop. And then, it'll throughout the day, it'll start to give you more and more and more in different ways. So I think people and the way that they work also, like AI should understand them and not just be this like arduous creature that just is badgering you for like annoying things all day.
Yeah.
I think one of the interesting things like with these voice created devices like Alexa is that it is not there until you need it. And even if it's doing something silly like setting a timer, which is probably one of the best use cases of it, it's really, the experience is delightful. Like you just use it. It's like out of the way. Like for me, how do we create that delightful experience with like finance, like, right, for people? And I think that's like going to be an interesting, it's just things are just going to be interesting. And I think interfaces are going to change quite a bit. We're going to see like, I don't know, I just think interfaces are going to change. And that means like just in time dashboards, like AI giving you like insights right when you need it, enabling like apps when you're like there, that sort of thing.
That's great. Yeah. So I have a question regarding like a customer journey or customer experience when some particular business wants to integrate Just Paid on your platform. Like, just have so currently even I am working on one of a WhatsApp e-commerce platform, and we always face this friction while integrating their existing system with our own platform or facilitating that transition. Like, can you just share about your customer experience or a journey, how things go by?
Yeah, so I mean, for us, one, once someone engages us, we want to know our customers. So of course, we're going to ask them for like validation of who they are. Once we have that, we've been hyper focused on the United States to date. So we haven't gone after India or Canada or the UK. It's primarily US based companies. But the idea is enable them for like one, their banking and getting their banking information connected to our software. So you can have one bank account, two bank accounts, five bank accounts. We pull all of that data in so the AI starts to learn. If they're using something like a Stripe or a payroll company, we connected to some of those. Our plan is to connect basically as many data sources as possible. So if a customer signs up and commits to using us, we will ask them like what data sources they'd like connected, and we would connect those in as well. Financial data would be placed into into our database. We would have our AI like scour over that for them. But the idea is to connect, their QuickBooks, their banking, their credit cards, their payroll, their anything else that's pertinent to it. And if there are systems that they want also connected in, our team would look closely at like doing that for them. We are early in our journey, so we do, you can get me on a phone call as a founder, you can get my other co-founders on a phone call as founders and just talk to them about like what you need. Once we have all of that data inside of our software, the AI starts to do its thing, and you can ask our AI chatbot questions like, what is my burn rate? How many laptops did I buy? Or create an investor, update for me. Those sorts of things you can start to ask. It also allows customers to make payments from bills that come in, or to create accounts receivable for the customers. So a company can start to pull in their money through AR. They can start to pay bills through the accounts payable part of the software with the AI as guide rails. A lot of the banks out there don't give those guide rails. And what I mean by that is like, it's a team of people like looking at a bill and saying, this is appropriate to pay. If AI can also be part of that experience and allow for quicker approval for getting, accounts receivable or accounts payable, that just makes things like easier, and you don't have to hire as many people for your company as you scale.
Makes sense. Yeah. So as per the given like the whole thing which we spoke about, do you see any direct competitors in the market, or do you see anyone doing similar thing like, let's say, Bill.com? They have been also providing services for bills, invoicing, and even vendor management. So, but I don't see any AI factor in them. They do provide those services. How do you feel that, like, if a vendor is using Bill.com and justpay.io, what would be the difference in their experience?
Well, one is there's a way to have a customer use both. So they can actually use our AI. We have an integration that they can do through our product. So they could talk to us. They could say they're using Bill.com. We have a way to connect and plug in so that they could use our software as well, if they want to continue using Bill.com. So I consider us a complementary product also whenever a customer wants to use Bill.com. Are there competitive products? The answer is probably yes. I do think everyone has a different take on like what they're doing, and like probably you get a different experience. So, Bill.com is purely like there's no AI involved.
Yeah,
It just kind of does payments for you. For us, we're also trying to focus on the accounts receivable side to make sure that like our customers can get paid through our product. Long term, the AI should become more proactive in getting the customer paid. What I mean by that is like if you invoice somebody and they don't pay you, right now it's like a team that follows up. We want to build out like ways to allow for like deeper engagement to get the customers to, make sure they know and are aware of payment. It might not be nefarious. It might just be that they're busy. But the world is large. Payments are like a thing that like needs to be solved. And I think that there's a lot of different like takes on it. So again, the way I view it is like the world of like car companies. Let's just say that there's many different options out there for people. Some people like gas cars, some people like electric cars, some people like big trucks, some people like small things. Some things like are for businesses, some things are not for businesses. So I think it depends on like the customer. We're aiming for smaller businesses that we want to help scale long term. So say you get a small tech company, some venture funding, and they really want to scale their company, so they want to be fiduciarily responsible. Generally, the companies that are very fiduciarily responsible get more funding. Not, this is just part of it.
Yeah.
The investors trust the team and they feel like the team is competent, and there's a lot of like protections and their other team members. If something happens with one team member, they really feel comfortable like investing in that. We're looking for like earlier teams that we want to support through the life of that journey. But it also is for for accounting firms to give to their clients as well. So um it's kind of our take on it. But I think with vendors like Bill.com, we want to complement if the customer feels really comfortable with that instead of taking over that. So they could literally plug our product on top of Bill.com, just get the AI components if they want that.
Yeah, that's pretty great. Yeah. So have you ever seen any particular trend in early adoption of the product? Like, is there any particular industry which is adapting it more frequently or in a more numbers? And is there any particular target group segment you are looking for? You said it's a small business, but like a tech business or a mom and pop store business or an e-commerce business. Like, do you have any particular industry which is adapting the product more often?
Primarily right now, it's been tech companies that are venture backed. So companies in the venture backed tech space have been adopting our product at a higher rate. I would say that we're open to any industry also, just because the product is not strictly catered to them. I do think it's more for like businesses that are going to have more complex flows of payment. But primarily it's been like tech, like right where you live is, I'm in Silicon Valley also. There's just so many companies here that are open
Yeah,
minded and trying things out, that's where we've been primarily like closing business.
that's great. And thank you so much for sharing this. And yeah, this is really insightful. I just feel like, keep listening to you. It's
Uh,
really, really insightful.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, no, this was great, Angram. I guess you're gonna do a write up on LinkedIn about it, or possibly do a write up.
Yeah, yeah. I'll go through the material again. I'll go and study about it, and I'll just give my take on or what I feel, so a reflection on our conversation as well, and just share a glimpse of key insights like people can just skim through it so that they can even I get some impression as well as I can share some knowledge.
Oh, that sounds great. Thank you so much, Agam. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
sure. Great to connect with you. Thank you.
You too.
Have a
Yeah.
great day. Thank you so much.